You're listening to Novel Bound, a podcast dedicated to making you laugh and keeping you company. Each week, we're sharing all of our favorite books and the embarrassing side of life.
Welcome back to Novel Bound. I'm Anna.
And I'm Celine.
And today we are going over everything Divine Rivals. This is the episode to listen to before the next book comes out.
Which comes out so soon.
The day after Christmas, if you guys are wondering.
What are you, like, when you picked up this book, like, what had you already heard about it?
I hadn't picked it up. You started reading it and you were like, you need to read this book. The banter is perfect.
Yes.
So that's all I knew going into it, was that it was like really good banter and it was about these two like writers.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, say no more. I did get tricked into reading a book about war.
Yes.
I will say that.
Yes.
But it was worth it.
Oh, it was worth it. This is one of those books that, like, I didn't know anything about it going in at all.
Same. Didn't read the summary, didn't read the back page.
Anna and I are severely bullied all the time into reading books. Like, that's Thorn on Glass, A Court of Thorns and Roses, Prison Healer recently, Divine Rivals, Fourth Wing. We have so many people that like message us and are like, have you read this book? And once like 12 people have consecutively messaged us, we're like, okay,
well, I guess we'll read it.
Like so many books have come into our life because we have gotten so many messages from people being like, have you read this yet? Why haven't you read it yet? I need you to read this. Like, here's go.
I mean, I judge a book by its cover. You have to, in the term literally. And I love Rebecca Ross, but the cover just like, to me, did not portray anything that it was about. So I was like, I have a ton of stuff on my TBR. So it was worth the read for sure. So,
oh my gosh. And we read this book immediately after Fourth Wing. And so like, that is a huge deal. If you followed us, you know how we feel about how hard it is to read a book after reading a good book.
Yeah, Fourth Wing put at least me into a severe book slump. Yeah. It was hard to get out of.
But Divine Rivals, I would say this is a dark academia comfort read.
I could see that. Yeah.
You are disagreeing with me. What do you think it is?
It's not that I'm disagreeing. It's the fact that like you are so heavily thrown into like war, but it's still like you get all the comforts like of their relationship.
Like comfort read. That's a weird way to describe the fact that like
these two people are out on the front lines for like a week, and this is a comfort read.
You know what? I'm kind of always high right now because of the lack of sleep I'm getting. So maybe for me, I was like,
I honestly though, like you can say comfort read in terms of their relationship because it's no questions. You are not questioning what their feelings are at all. So that I appreciate.
So if you were to pitch Divine Rivals in 1 minute, why should someone read this book?
Very extremely amazing lyrical writing, and it is very enemies to lovers. And once you pass the enemies to lovers, it is pure fluff. The romance, the love, the commitment, and the story is very interesting. I'm really excited to see where she takes in the second book in terms of the world building, like the mythology that she's brought in is interesting. When two young rival journalists find love through a magical connection, they must face the depths of hell in a war among gods to seal their fate forever. After centuries of sleep, the gods are warring again, but 18-year-old Iris Winnow just wants to hold her family together. Her mother is suffering from addiction and her brother is missing from the front lines. Her best bet is to win the columnist promotion at the Oath Gazette. To combat her worries, Iris writes letters to her brother and slips them beneath her wardrobe door, where they vanish, into the hands of Roman Kip, her cold and handsome rival at the paper. When he anonymously writes Iris back, the two of them forge a connection that will follow Iris all the way to the front lines of battle for her brother, the fate of mankind, and love. And then it says Shadow and Bone meets Lore in Rebecca Ross's Divine Rivals, an epic enemies to lovers fantasy novel filled with hope and heartbreak and the unparalleled power of love. It was amazing. So let's just get into the summary.
Yeah. Okay, why don't you start us off? So this is a recap episode in order to get everyone prepared for the next book. So we're basically going to just like go over the characters, the plot, what kind of happens, and then we'll have like a little book club discussion. And so if you guys Spotify has this new feature where you can put comments in there. And so we'll have a couple questions and stuff like that. And we want you guys to be a part of the discussion.
Yeah.
Not only do we want to hear what you have to say, but also like it really helps us out when you guys interact with our content. So we'd love for you guys to put your thoughts when we have these questions. So let's start off.
Yes,
Go ahead and
exactly.
like, let's go. Let's go,
I
babe.
know. Okay, so to start it off, centuries ago, the gods of this world, which is Cambria, warred until only five remained. And with the five, there were two families of gods, the underlings and the skywards. And the humans were eventually able to subdue the five gods in slumber, and they buried all of them under different parts of Cambria, the world. And 7 months ago, an underling god, Dacre, I don't know how to pronounce the names. I don't know if it's Dacre or Dacre. I don't think it really matters, but Dacre and a skyward goddess Enva awoke. Dacre declared war on Iris, an 18-year-old working at the local paper, the Oath Gazette, works to support herself and her alcoholic mother, who fell apart when her brother left months ago to fight for Enva. So the way that this is, I kind of explained in the book, is that Enva sends this song out to people. She like sings to people, and they hear her song and answer her call, and that's why they go fight for her. Honestly, we don't really know anything about Enva and Dacre at this part, so that's all we know.
I think the world, honestly, I think this was, I'm like, hi, let's get into it. I'm wondering if this was based off of anything, like any specific lore
I
or
would love to know, honestly.
because this is like super unique and I'm like, oh, is this like you know how Shadow and Bone was like a retelling of it was like a Russian fairy
Russian
tale.
folklore. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's funny because this takes place in this not alternate universe, but like well, yeah, it is an alternate universe because there's
Yeah.
yeah. But it feels so much like World War II. I cannot.
It is insane how you are right. It does.
And it takes place in like London, but it's not like, you know what I mean? It feels so British and it feels so much like it takes
But
place
it's
in World
not
War
at
II,
the same
but it's
time.
not. And
Yes.
it's not like she shows versus tells because obviously she's not saying that it is, but the way that I can immediately identify and be like, this is an AU. This is an AU, and I
Oh,
accept.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's an AU we love. Okay. So back to Iris and her mom. She is barely getting them by. Months ago, the electricity was turned off. Like I remember reading she has candles that they have to light that's been dripping all over the furniture, the tables and the walls and stuff.
Everything. All the furniture to pay for her mom's addiction, including
Mm-hmm.
like all of her grandmother stuff. Like she was talking about how the home was silent when she got home.
Yeah, her mom sells her grandma's radio. And she's like, that's the one thing. She's like, and the mom sells it, and it's not like she uses it for rent money. She like sells it and uses it to buy alcohol, which is even more heartbreaking for Iris. I feel like Rebecca does a great job making you understand she's not in a good place. She was a dropout from college. I think I already said that.
Yeah, she
No,
dropped
but she dropped out from high school. I think she didn't even finish high school.
something like that. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I've read like 12 books since then. Since
Yeah.
book.
Same.
No, what I feel is I think Rebecca Ross is like she's an instructor in showing versus telling. And
Mhm.
so she doesn't say like, you know how Wattpad is where it's like, I am a poor orphan. I'm a poor girl. I hate being poor. She shows us by like talking
It's
about how
such a
her
good.
shoes aren't fitting right.
Mm-hmm.
Has to wear her mom's shoes because she doesn't have these things and how like she's walking with a limp. And then I love the fact that we get Roman's perspective of this. So not she's trying to like act grown up about this. Like obviously it's hard. But then you see Rowan, he is like, why is she limping? Why is this happening?
He is noticing all of this.
And that is one of my favorite tropes is when the male protagonist um is like the who hurt you kind of thing where it's like he feels so protective over her and he wants to help her, but she's never gonna ask for it, but he's gonna be like,
No.
let me help you.
Like the scenes when he shows up. Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, so as of right now, Iris, basically her only ambition is to defeat Roman. They are work rivals. They're both fighting for the position of columnist, a job which will give her a pay increase, and she obviously desperately needs it.
And this is
I
like
also think,
enemies to lovers part. This is where
oh
they are
yes,
bantering back and forth like so intensely. She in fact so many times like she's hurting and I'll be like, this would be a great time for you to tell him that you're kind of going through stuff right now. And she's like, actually, I'm gonna give
oh
the
god,
best comeback ever. And I'm
yeah.
like, oh honey, okay.
She will. She does not open up. She was like, "You will pry this information from my cold dead hands. Absolutely not. Will I be vulnerable with you?" But what I love is they both read each other's papers and will never admit it. They both are like, "Ugh," but I'm gonna read a paper because she writes amazing.
It is so good. I'm trying to think like it's Paris Geller energy. Like unbridled Paris
Yes.
Geller energy.
Yeah,
That's how it
that's
feels.
accurate. I like that. Yeah. But so kind of what's holding Iris back a little bit is she really wants to write about the war, what's really going on. She wants to learn all the little details, but the paper is, they don't say it outright, but she does a good job of making the reader understand that there is definitely a censorship going on in the Oath Gazette. So they cannot talk about any of the deep war details, none of that stuff.
It's all froth.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why. So basically, this is like the political stuff. So Enva is like it's an alluding to like the positive, light-filled side. And then Dacker is like the like dark side or whatever.
Yep.
And Enva, people who play music or whatever are called through music to like go and fight at the things. And Iris's brother hears the song and he's like, I have to leave you and I have to go. And so Iris in her heartbreak writes this letter to her brother and she's like, I feel so selfish for hating you right now, but I'm so upset with you. And so she types it all up on her grandmother's typewriter that she has. And so she types this letter up and just like puts it in her closet because she's like, I literally don't like, I just need to get these feelings out. So she writes it out about how she feels so heartbroken about her brother and she hasn't heard from him in months. She's like, where are you? Why aren't you responding? Do you love us anymore? Mom's completely gone. Like everything that I've ever had is there. And so she writes this like really long letter on her typewriter and she puts it in.
Yeah. And so for months she's been doing this and she doesn't know what else to do. The only thing to bring her comfort, she puts them under her closet door and they are disappearing. She does not know how, she doesn't know why. All she knows is that she thinks her brother is magically getting these letters. She's hoping at least. But so she writes this letter, and this is where we learn this was so delicious when I first read this POV that we also get Roman's POV. And he has been getting her letters all of these months and he has not responded to a single one. He's been reading them obviously, and I think he's really cherishing them.
And he's figured out it's her very quickly.
Oh yeah, he knows exactly who it is. Yeah. So she sends this last letter and he finally is so moved by everything she's feeling that he writes her back. And he does not tell her who he is, obviously, because he knows that would be bad. So he's called himself Carver, which is his
And he
middle
does
name.
this because he knows how embarrassed she will be if her and like she knows that he knows that she hates him. He knows, and it's because he made a stupid comment because he was super insecure on his first day where he's like, she isn't anything. Like she's like some poor college dropout. Like I am not threatened by her. And so like Iris was motivated by spite. She's like, I'm gonna freaking do this. So they've been
Like, actually, I would be the best at this anyone ever has been.
yes. And so he like recognizes her need to succeed and stuff. So he's constantly pushing her to be her best, constantly pushing her to challenge herself. Like, come on, Iris, show up on time. Iris, like, just basically like giving her an entire purpose. And as he's learned these things about her brother, he is driven to like so much love and compassion for her, but can't ever
Oh
say
yeah. And the reader knows this, but he hasn't yet admitted to himself how deeply he's fallen for her.
he's whipped. He's whipped
Oh,
so
he's so whipped. And honestly, throughout all of this too, you do learn like he grew up in an upper class upbringing, but that comes with a lot of downward.
he's definitely got like a manipulative father.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
they don't once again show versus tell, which we love. You don't I don't think they ever mention that he's like abusive, but he's definitely like the way that the wife acts around her husband is like very much like battered woman, like kind of vibes. Like cannot you like women should be seen and not heard, whatever it is. And Roman doesn't know what to do in that situation. Like the only thing
Well,
that
and he thinks he
has
deserves
power.
all this bad treatment, right? Because years ago he was there when I think it's his sister, when his sister died, she drowned. And so he's like, I don't deserve to be happy. I deserve to do whatever they say because I couldn't save my sister.
Yes. Oh, that is, we'll talk more about that later because that is one of the biggest heartbreaking things I've ever heard in my life.
So honestly,
happens. He writes back, this isn't your brother. And she responds like, oh, cool. Can you burn all of those letters? And
he's like, I would love my letter back actually. And he's like, no, I'm going to keep it.
Yes.
And so they like have a correspondence. Like every night they are writing back and forth to each other.
So they become like best friends.
Yeah, it's cute. And you learn, so like they're connected by their typewriters, right? So Iris inherited an old typewriter from her nan, and with it, she's been that's everything that she writes on. So that's when she first wrote her first letter to her brother. So she has been writing Roman back and forth unknowingly. I have to start all this over.
There's so many parts that I wanted to like pull from when he
I
writes. What?
I have to start over what I was saying. I was like, okay, so you actually learn that. So Iris inherited a typewriter from her nan, and Roman inherited a typewriter from his grandma. And you learn that they were manufactured together, like with the same magic. There was a third one. There was like this trio of girls who all were young, and one of them got really sick. And the girl who got sick, her father made these typewriters, and he like made them magical somehow so that they could deliver notes back and forth to each other while the other girl was still sick. They could still kind of communicate. So that's how they're able to communicate, which is so cool. So yeah, they have this super long correspondence. They like share a lot of things with each other. Even throughout all of this, Carver, Roman, is writing Iris, and he's like, oh, I actually have old lore from my grandfather about who the gods were that you can't find. I think Celine is like has some really good examples of his writing.
Okay, so I wanted to read this because it was so one of the things that I love about Rebecca Ross's writing is it's very insightful and deep and reflective. So one of the things that so he sits through this dinner, this horrible dinner. I think the chapter's called like the worst dinner ever, or whatever, and or dinner with people you hate or something like that. And he finds out that he's supposed to be engaged to this girl who has no interest in him, and he has no interest in her. And basically, he's being told by his father like, you have to do that. And let's add on top of it that they're involved with a lot of like bombs that could destroy the world.
Yeah, her dad, the girl's dad brings these crates out, and Roman is like, what's that? And his father's like, don't worry about it, son. But he's like, but actually, I am gonna worry about it.
Yeah. So he goes this is like I wanted to read this because it's such a good example of how their friendship grows. This is the first time that he confides in her. And he goes, do you ever feel as if you wear armor day after day? That when people look at you, they only see the shine of steel that you've so carefully encased yourself in. They see what they want to see in you, the warped reflection of their own face, or a piece of the sky, or a shadow cast between buildings. They see all the times you've made mistakes, all the times you've failed, all the times you've hurt them or disappointed them, as if that is all you will ever be in their eyes. How do you change something like that? How do you make your life your own and not feel guilt over it? Because he feels forced. This is like upping the stakes. He feels forced to accept all of these things that he was forced to be on the paper. He was forced to marry this girl. And it's because he feels so horribly guilty about he was basically the only one watching his sister when she died, and he had fallen asleep. And so every day he's trying to atone for what he has done. And so his father has manipulated him. And then he goes, I sincerely apologize for bothering you with such thoughts. I hope I didn't wake you. No need to reply to me. I just think it helps to type things out. And this is where she goes, I think we all wear armor. I think those who don't are fools, risking the pain of being wounded by the sharp edges of the world over and over again. But if I've learned anything from those fools, it's that to be vulnerable is a strength most of us fear. It takes courage to let down your armor, to welcome people to see you as you are. Sometimes I feel the same as you. I can't risk having people behold me as I truly am. But there's also a small voice in my mind, a voice that tells me you will miss so much by being guarded. Perhaps it begins with one person, someone you trust. You remove a piece of armor for them, you let the light stream in, even if it makes you wince, and perhaps that is how you learn to be soft yet strong, even in fear and uncertainty. One person, one piece of steel. And he one person, one piece of armor. I'll strive for this, thank you. And she writes this as her mother has not returned.
Yeah. So this is kind of where we're getting to shortly after they've started their correspondence. Her mom dies in a car crash, and Iris learns about this in the most heartbreaking way I think I've ever had a character discover a death. Is it I thought a car hit her.
I cannot remember. I thought she fell in between the tracks or something. Because
now you're making me second guess. Maybe she did. All I know is that so Iris gets to work. She still doesn't know where her mom is, but she's like, you know what? She's probably at a club somewhere. I'm sure she's fine. She gets handed a stack of notices to print, like to write out to get printed. And the first one is local woman hit in an accident, dead, was wearing a purple coat. Like, we need someone to come forward and identify her. And she was like, based off of the descriptions, Iris is like, oh my gosh, that's my mother. So she obviously runs out of work. Roman sees her. He's really concerned for her. She gets to the station. She has to identify her dead mother, which she does. This sends her into a complete spiral for good reason. I mean, her brother's missing. even though her mom was an alcoholic, she still lost her last family member. I don't know why. I mean, I see why, but she tells no one at work about this. She doesn't show up the next day. Roman shows up to her house. She's obviously a mess. She's been crying all night long. He
Yes.
is picking up on these little details, right? But Iris thinks that he's just going to see her candles melted everywhere in her messy house. And she's like, I can't let him see me even more vulnerable right now. I just cannot. So she like accepts her coat from him. She slams the door in his face and he's like, no, 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 no. Are you okay? Like he's really worried about her. This is kind of where you see the dynamic change.
Yes. And I feel like she lets you sit with it for a minute. And it's crazy because this
You
is
are in her grief for a minute.
yes, and I think it's hard. Like, okay, so right now I'm working on my book, and for me, it's really hard to let my characters sit in their pain, especially because
Mm.
I want them to like, let's go on the adventure because they're about to go on this adventure. And instead, she lets us sit, and I feel like the power of this is that we really are pining for her. We're identifying with her, and we're so connected with her journey as a character that like it taught me a lot about the fact that like if you want your readers to be connected to your characters, then you need to let them sit in their grief.
Mm-hmm.
Roman is like trying to reach out to her. So she, in like a state of absolute insanity, is like, I have to leave. I have to get out of here.
Well, because of all of this, she loses the columnist position. Roman gets it. And like that is the final snap. She's like, you know what? I actually quit. Not doing this. I can't. I'm not doing this anymore. Even Roman is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you doing? Like, I kind of was doing this for you a little bit. So she leaves. She goes to the other job, which is like the Ink Tribune. Um, I'm trying to find where it says
Which is
this. Sorry.
basically like war propaganda. Like they're
Yeah.
looking
Oh,
for,
yeah,
they're
the Ink
actively
Tribune. She gets hired on to be a war correspondent
yes, because they're
because
actively
they want to write what's really going on.
yeah, they're actively trying to find people that are willing to go there. They're like basically like, so you're gonna die. Here's a liability waiver.
A
Um,
big liability, and they're like, "We'll give you a lot of money, though."
and she needs that
She
money.
does, and she's desperate to find her brother. Like her mom just died, and she's like, "I will find my brother. I'm finding my last family. Like I have nothing holding me back now." So she goes there. She gets hired on. She goes home to pack her like threadbare things because they have to wear this jumpsuit because they're in war torn territory. That's a big note later on. So she takes her typewriter, her little bag of things. She writes one last note to Carver because she doesn't realize it's the typewriters that connect to them yet. Slips under her door where she's like, "You won't be hearing from me." And she sees that he has responded with a note, but she's like, "No, I know if I open it and I read it, I'll stay."
And Roman's freaking out.
He's like, "Where are you going? It's me. It's Roman. Don't go."
May I ask where you're going? Like
Yeah.
she goes, I'll carry the things you shared with me in my next adventure. And she like leaves and he's like, may I ask where you are going? And he leaves. This is my favorite part, is another piece of paper that
Yeah,
goes.
that's what
And she's like, I can't open it. Because if I open it, I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna stay. Because I know because like I genuinely start like I know that this person is such an amazing person that like they will convince me and I have to go. So she leaves the note unopened on the foot of her closet.
Yes. So she ends up getting stationed at a bed and breakfast. The owner, her name is Marisol. And there's another correspondent named Addie, who is kind of going to be like, I'm proving to my family that I can go do this, that like you need to have experiences in life to for reasons. It's 80 kilometers from the front line, but they do get a lot of soldiers their way. So they end up taking care of a lot of them, nursing them, and they just do a lot for the town. This is where she learns. So she continues to write the mysterious Carver. And eventually Roman shows up. He also quit the oath and took a war correspondent job. Of course, he's pulling up as the siren is going off that like the winged beasts are coming, and she's like, oh my gosh. So she tackles him in a field, and he's like, he thinks that she's coming to give her a hug, and he's like, what? Wait, what? It's delicious. They have to stay there for like a hot
That part
minute.
is like my favorite part because they have to stay there for like an hour, just like
Yeah.
trapped on each other, and they're just like. I also love the fact that everyone around them is continually being like, "So you guys are obsessed with each other." Like at the news.
Oh, everyone sees it. Everyone sees it.
No, I hate
But of
him.
course, Roman can't confess his feelings, and he has not come clean to her still that he is Carver.
So
He
Roman,
her, though, to start running, so they like start
Roman
falling.
only he literally breaks the engagement, he realizes that she's at the war front, and he's like, I have to do everything to
Oh
get
yeah.
save her. Like he's at this point he realizes there is no one else in the world for me but this girl, and
Hmm.
he would do anything. He'd go to the front lines for her. What is crazy is Iris is now realizing how much she had not, like, plot wise. So like when we veer away from the romance, plot wise, she's realizing how horrific the trenches are. How
Oh,
much.
so what happens? Yeah. So they're in this town for a little bit, and finally Roman gets the courage up to tell her he's Carver, right? He writes her this little letter. He gives it to her, like he gets slipped under her door, but of course she gets called to the front lines, and he's like, "You're not going alone. I'm coming with you." So she doesn't get the chance to read the letter. She packs it in her bag. They both are there for like 6 days. Doesn't get a chance to read the letter. Doesn't get a chance to read the letter.
He has to sit on his lap because there's not enough room. They have to like
Yep.
bunk together. She's crying, and he's like, I know exactly why you're crying, but you haven't told me in real life, so I can't comfort you.
Yep.
And he's so funny
Yeah.
because he's like, man, whoever that guy must be an idiot. Like he's totally like hating on himself, but it's
He
not
is.
himself. Like it's so cute and clever, and you're just like, ah, like I love it.
It's so like it's great. It's a great conflict. But so they end up getting attacked like the second to last day that they're on the front lines in the trenches. And of course, all of the soldiers are like, you guys have to get out of here right now. A bomb gets thrown. Roman picks it up and throws it so that it doesn't blow Iris up, but he ends up getting gravely injured. This all happens as she's beginning to read this letter. So of course she hasn't finished reading the letter yet. He gets like gravely injured. They have to take a car out of there. Like they're separated. All of the soldiers she was with died. It's like very traumatic. It's full on war. She gets back to the place that they're staying at, this bed and breakfast, and she finally has a time to read the letter, and she learns it's Roman. And even though the letter is like super romantic and it's like a confession of feelings, she feels very betrayed. Like she feels humiliated almost. She was tricked by him because she's kind of growing to like Roman, but she obviously has deep feelings for Carver. They've shared very personal things with each other. Um, so they get back and she goes to see him in the hospital. And he's like, "Oh, like now you know, now there's no secrets." And she's like, "What do you mean? Like I feel so deceived." And he like kisses her and she kisses him back, and it's this like crazy moment, but she can't accept it yet because she's feeling very overwhelmed, so she runs away like our main characters do. But
So
eventually she
basically, like, you
realizes,
just have to understand that we are kicking and screaming, like we're kicking our feet, and we're just like, oh my god!
yeah.
It's like successively, like one after the other. Like every time, every like Anna's saying these sentences, and after every single sentence, there is like a full like I'm screaming into my fist being like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, like like people are dying, like oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, people are in pain, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, like
Yes, it is a back and forth thing. But eventually she like sits in her feelings for a little bit, and she realizes that her feelings for Carver and Roman are the same. They both have this beautiful moment where they confess their feelings in the garden, and she like jokes about that they should get married. And then Roman gets on one knee and he proposes to her, and we are all screaming, crying, kicking our feet.
and it felt right. Like I know that
It
there's
did.
some romances where you're like, oh, you said I love you already, okay, but like you love them. This is my comfort romance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is my comfort romance. There isn't any other romance I think I've read this
No.
year that is as maybe Prison Healer, but like this one.
I just started that. I'm very excited to get into it.
I am now holding you at gunpoint. I am
I
bullying.
will. I will finish it.
Third book.
Um, okay, so the celebration gets cut short though, because of course the town is notified that it's about to be overrun by Dacre's forces. So they will be attacked at like dawn. But Roman and Iris are like, no, we are gonna get married. And Marisol and Addie like help them do this really cute little ceremony. And they both take a shower and they put flowers in Iris's hair. And yes, they're in these ugly jumpsuits, but it's still really romantic. And they light like 100 candles in Roman's room. And they have their like first night as a married couple together, which I like love that. It was so meaningful. It was so cute. Yeah, and then the next morning comes and it's down to freaking business. They have to get the town ready. They have to do the barricades, all of this.
And Marisol, who's the owner of the bed and breakfast, her wife comes into town
Yes.
and basically brings the news that her brother is alive. And
Yeah.
Iris, and he's at the front. So Iris goes, I'm going to stay
Mhm.
instead of evacuating. I'm going to stay, and I'm not going to evacuate so I can find my brother. And Roman's like, well, I have to stay with you. So
Yeah.
while everybody evacuates, they are staying with all of the people that are the soldiers that are fighting, and the soldiers all know that they're all going to die. This is a death sentence because they
Mm-hmm.
have these like, is it the wyverns?
It's like a type of like winged beast.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember.
So
Maybe
the way
it,
that she writes this war is like basically you imagine like the World War II, like there's the sirens that go off and they have to stay under,
Mhm.
but instead of there being like the
There's like a lot of mythological creatures. Like
instead
they
of
have
like yeah,
dogs,
they're the
like
weapon.
they're hellhounds. They have the hellhounds and the like the winged things. Why can't I think of the name of them? I feel so stupid. But
Fine.
so they basically the next day comes because they didn't attack in the morning, so they had the whole day to set up. The next day comes, those winged beast comes and drops tear gas on everyone. Those canisters that Roman saw at his dad's house, that's what that was. It was tear gas. Um, Iris and Roman get separated, but then Roman somehow finds Iris, has a gas mask on, gives her a gas mask, and is leading her out of the town to safety. She's confused. She doesn't know where he came from. She has like a really weird feeling in her gut. Finally, she sees they get out onto the fields, and she's like, I'm not taking a step further with you until you show me your face. And it ends up being her freaking brother, who she has so many questions about. But it makes the first thought in Iris's mind is, oh my gosh, Roman, what happened to Roman? What's wrong with Roman? He has been following them this whole time on his injured leg, limping, just taking in all this tear gas. Obviously not okay. He collapses in the field where she first tackled him, basically left for dead. We know that he's dying. He's not okay. Forrest basically forces Iris to travel back to the capital to their apartment. She feels awful, and Forrest doesn't even comfort her. So she's questioning who her brother has become. And so this is when she learns that Forrest was injured at the front lines, like weeks into his service, and he was taken to the town of Marat, where he was 2 weeks to evacuate once Dacre attacked. So then Dacre himself healed Forrest and forced him to serve in his army. That's what he's been doing with all these missing soldiers. He's been taking them, saving their lives, literally, and forcing them to fight for him. Wild. So the book ends on Dacre finding Roman dying in the field. He's like, he is not long for this earth. He is dying.
From dying.
Like, there's no question he is going to die. Saves him, and he's like, oh, I've never had a war correspondent to fight for me, to be with me. That's where it ends.
Oh, and Roman doesn't remember the fact that he was married.
Nope. Oh, yeah, he loses his memory.
He loses everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that because okay, so how does one do like a duology when they're already married? And so you only have so many options, and that's
Yeah.
like, do they hate each other? Do they fight? Is there
Mm-hmm.
kidnapping? Whatever. No, no, no. They have to fall in love all over again in the second book.
Ew.
And like, is their
Yep.
love strong enough for them to like? And the next book is called Ruthless Vows, and I think about the fact that like
Yes.
vows like marriage, like
Is there a description yet? I'm
I'll
looking
find
at right
it.
now.
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so I will discuss what I have a couple questions. So what surprised you about this book? Like what took you by surprise?
Okay, honestly, surprised me most, as you all know, I have a really hard time reading war books, but I actually really enjoyed this.
Yeah,
It was good. The characters were really good. I felt like the world was really well written. Obviously, I'm obsessed with Roman and Iris.
I'm obsessed with Roman.
Yeah.
Um, what character made you scream? And mine is Forrest.
Mm-hmm.
Was such an like a whiplash assassination like of my heart. Like
It was
I
serious whiplash. Yeah.
so Roman or not Roman, so Forrest, her brother, basically saw Iris's locket from her mom in the
Yeah, I didn't even tell you that part. Oh my gosh.
and or in the trenches. And he took that and like used that as the strength and courage to break free of the control and transport her safely.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like one of the only people I think in existence basically that has been able to break out of the control. And so
Yes.
we need to get out
And
of
what
it.
it teaches us is that it can happen.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
However, I was so upset with him when he's like, "We have to go. I'm lying to you," and he saw them in the garden. He watched.
He had been setting this moment up for days. He had been at Avalon Bluff, which is where they were, for days. He stole Roman's extra jumpsuit.
He
Like,
knew how much she loved him,
mhm.
and he left. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna forgive
He
him.
is a changed man. War has definitely changed him.
What character did you relate the most to?
Oh, I don't know. That's hard. I really liked Roman. I liked his like, I need to fit this role that's been put for me, but like at the same time, that's not what my heart wants. I need to follow that and do what I want. Like, and he does, which I'm interested to see. There probably won't be written out any consequences to that. I'm curious to see in the second book, like what's going to come of that. Because obviously the
Wait,
chemist and that and his daughter, like they made the tear gas.
I have to read the last page because it comes back to haunt us at the end. It said, so she comes home with her brother to the apartment where her mom, is no more. And she said, and there on the floor was a piece of paper. Iris froze staring at it. She had left it there untouched. She had chosen not to read it months ago, fearing Carver would alter the course she was determined to take. She set the candle aside. She stared at the paper, nearly holding it over the flame to burn. She didn't know if she was strong enough to open it. She worried it would break the last of her to read his words now, but in the end, she couldn't resist. The paper unfolded like wings in her hand. His words met her like a blade. She bowed over them. Iris, Iris, it's me, Kit. Roman had
Roman Kit. He
Roman.
like that's what I was saying earlier. He like sent her this letter and he was like, "It's me, don't go, it's me."
Yeah.
And she didn't read it. Ugh,
So
beautiful
the whole
foreshadow.
time he was honest before him, and so that is like where I think his redemption is there. And so she knows she has to figure it out, but she thinks he's dead. For me, I think Iris. I think that I just really relate to her because I think that she acted very rationally in every single aspect and the situation that she was in. I understood all of her emotions and why she would act a certain way. And I think sometimes I get frustrated with characters when I'm like, why are you
Mm-hmm.
doing this? But I understand why she didn't tell anyone
Why
because
her rationalities were like
why
that, yeah.
she went to the front, why she acted this way. So yeah.
Yeah, she's in a moment that makes it very understandable. Like her life is so torn apart. It's yeah. Great. I'm very excited. Well, if you listen to all of this, you should comment what you're hoping for the next book, your thoughts, what you loved about it. I'm excited to see where it takes us. I'm nervous. Oh, okay, wait. I'm gonna read the
Yes.
little thing for book two for Ruthless Vows.
Do it,
You
babe.
ready? Okay, 2 weeks have passed since Iris Minnow returned home, bruised and heartbroken from the front, but the war is far from over. Roman is missing, and the city of Oath continues to dwell in a state of disbelief and ignorance. When Iris and Addie are given another chance to report on Dacre's movements, they both take the opportunity and head westward once more despite the danger, knowing it's only a matter of time before the conflict reaches a city that's unprepared and fracturing beneath the Chancellor's reign. Since waking below in Dacre's realm, Roman cannot remember his past, but given the reassurance that his memories will return in time, Roman begins to write articles for Dacre, uncertain of his place in the greater scheme of the war. When a strange letter arrives by wardrobe door, Roman is first suspicious, then intrigued. As he strikes up a correspondence with this mysterious pen pal, Roman will soon have to make a decision to stand with Dacre or betray the god who healed him. And as the days grow darker, inevitably drawing Roman and Iris closer together, the two of them will risk their very hearts and futures to change the tides of war. I'm very curious to know how she's going to pull off rewriting their love story because that's what she basically has to do.
Yes. And
Unless it's going to be like very soon and then a new conflict. Like I'm really curious.
I'm so excited. And it's gonna
Yeah,
be right after Christmas. Like
the day
Tanner
after
has the
Christmas.
day off, like that week off, and I'm like, cool. So I will not be in existence. I will
No.
this book.
For the next 24 hours, that book will be being consumed. Yeah.
Hey Rebecca, babe, can
Hey,
we
girly pop. What would happen if you just called Taylor up?
we just came on the podcast? Like, can we do a book club with you, girl? Can we do a book club?
Yes. So fun. Okay. So
Oh,
drop your theories. Let us know what you think. I literally don't even know what to think.
yeah.
I'm so excited.
We love you guys.
All right, until next time. Bye.
Talk to you guys later. Bye.